we are going to, the first process is the plan risk management. And I want us to follow these whole processes logically so that we can find the relationship that play along them. And then understanding how each of these processes are being carried out and what each of these processes tend to achieve. All right. So the plan risk management is the process of defining how to conduct risk management activities for a project. So that's primarily what we do here. So all of the risk policies, procedures, practices, you define them in the plan risk management. Just like Deacon Damilola said, we are to encourage organizations to bring in risk management practices or inculcate risk assessment in the operations that we carry out. But how the risk assessment should be carried out should first of all be planned out. That's where the plan risk management comes to play. Okay, that's where the risk management, is it going to be a daily thing? Is it going to be a weekly thing? Is it going to be a monthly thing? That will be defined. Now, what are going to be the risk matrices? What can we call acceptable risk, unacceptable risk, tolerable risk? That will be defined. What will we call the risk probability index? At what index can we say, okay, this risk is acceptable? At what index can we say, okay, this risk is tolerable? At what index will we say, okay, we'll reject this one? Okay, so how do we measure the impact of risks? All of those will be defined before we go into conducting the risk assessment. So primarily, the plan risk assessment is the process of defining how to conduct risk management activities, either for a project, for an organization, for an individual, for a family, how to conduct it. That's how we plan. We plan that how. All right. The key benefit of this process is that it ensures that the degree, type, and visibility of risk management are proportionate to both risks and the importance of the project to the organization and other stakeholders. So, like I was trying to say, the degree of the risk, the impact of the risk, the type of the risk, the visibility of the risk, all of these things will have to be defined in the plan risk management process. Okay, and then also measuring the correlation, the impact of the risk to the project or to the organization, okay, also need to be measured so as to be able to know, okay, should we carry on with the risk or not? It is important for us to notice something, that a risk might be high, but it is worth taking it. Why a risk might be low, but it is not worth taking it. So you have what we call the high priority risks, we have what we call the medium priority risks, and then we have the low priority risk. Now, it is the responsibility of the organization or the responsibility of whoever that is performing the risk management to define the priorities, the terms and conditions for the priorities. So what do we call high priority risk? What we call high priority risk in company A might not be the same as high priority risk in company B, because their mode of operations differ and the hazards involved in each of the risks also differ. For instance, what we call high priority risk in the banking industry and what we call high priority risk in the maybe oil and gas industry might not be the same, okay, based on the hazards involved in the operations that come alongside with the risks, or the operations that the risks that have the embedment of the risks. I trust someone is understanding me. What we call high priority risk in the school system today in Nigeria might not be the same as the same thing as a high priority risk in maybe for someone who is producing a chin-chin. Okay, in Nigeria now, high priority risk for schooling is adoption. So we must do anything to avoid the risk. In someone that is doing chin-chin, the high priority risk there might be fire, the place being engulfed by fire and things like that. Okay, so we need to understand and define these indices for carrying out risk management operations. This process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. All right. Now, in the inputs for carrying out plan risk management, we need the project charter, we need the project management plan, we need the project document, we need the enterprise environmental factors, and we need the organizational process asset. Now, I would like us to discuss this because we've somehow we've actually been exposed to the foundational knowledge of project management. So I don't think there is any discussion in project management now that should take you unawares or you feel like you shouldn't contribute. All right. Okay, so let's look at this. Look at these things. Why is project charter an input necessary to plan risk management? Why is a project management plan not just any component, but all of the components necessary? Why is stakeholder register important in planning risk management? Why are EFs and OPAs major inputs? So I will take 5 contributions and then we'll move ahead. I think that will be okay. So if you're picking one, just pick one and tell us why you think this input is necessary to plan the risk management. I've already explained what planning the risk management process is all about, right? So let's make it very brief. Just pick anyone that you're comfortable with, you want to discuss, and then tell us in 30 seconds, tell us why you think is a requirement for planning risk. Please, can we do that very fast? Okay, someone said my slide is not moving. So let me. So I've reshared the slide. Okay, so let's have from God's power. Just pick one. Anybody that is speaking, just pick one. If someone has already picked one, don't pick that one again. Just 5 contributions and we'll move ahead. All right, kindly unmute and let's hear from you, sir.
Okay, looking at enterprise organization as factors. Now, if you look at it very well, let's take at maybe building. When you're building a house, there is a social artists, the people we call the area boys. They can pose as a risk to the project. So they too needs to be planned and alongside so that the workers that are working are do not get injured or get beaten up because of some certain, misunderstanding between them and the company. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So that was a very good example for EF. And obviously, those kind of people need to be managed. All right, can we have another person's contribution? Please, let's make it very fast so that we can proceed. I hope you can still hear me. Please, if you can hear me loud and clear, can we please type on one in the chat room? If you can hear me loud and clear, please type on one in the chat room. If you can hear me loud and clear, please type on one in the chat room. If you can hear me loud and clear, can we type one in the chat room, or am I on my own? Can anyone hear me at all?
When we talk about the project stakeholder,
yes,
their input to the project, we are talking about decision making.
That's right.
Which is very important. Because we are all to know that without the stakeholder, there's no job being done. Their decision tells you the direction at which the project will go. And meanwhile, when we are running the project, they are the one to determine how the decision on how the project should run. When we are talking about the deadlines, they want to let us know how to meet up, and then what are the activities to carry out part-time, because we have what we are talking about, one of the overlapping step-by-step project.
Yes.
That they want to see the step at which the process at which we have been going through, the percentage at which the project is being run. Like maybe we are now at the 30% to the finish line. So the addition is very important. Their input is very, very important.
All right.
They should not be taken for granted. Thank you.
All right. Sir. Thank you so much for that contribution. Obviously, decision making on its own is a risk. All right. So the stakeholders' interest, the stakeholders' influence, the stakeholders' impact to the project are all potential sources of risk. And that's why we need to have a very good stakeholder register so that we know the stakeholders, their interests, their levels of influence to the project, and manage the risk that come alongside with all of those things as well. All right, so having looked at the inputs, is there anybody in this class who doesn't understand why any of these inputs is necessary for planning risk management? Or do you think there is another input that needs to be considered? If yes, let us know. If there is one you think you should not be there, or you don't understand why it's there, just let us know as well. We'll discuss it now. Please, very quickly. Is there any input you think, I don't understand why it's here? Or is there any input you think should be added, and why should it be added? While I'm waiting for that, in the tools and technique, we have the expert judgment. We have the data analysis, where we do more of stakeholder analysis, and then we have the meetings. And then on the output, we are expected to have a risk management plan. Okay, a risk management plan. All right. Now, before I go to the next slide, what do you think should be the major components of a risk management plan? Based on all of these things we have highlighted here on the input and the tools and technique, what do you think would be the major elements or components? What should be contained in a risk management plan? So let's have your input on this. What should be in a risk management plan? Remember that the risk management plan is an output from the plan risk management. So inevitably, it is not the execution of the risk plan itself, but it is a plan that will guide us on how to carry out risk management activities or risk management operations within an organization. So what do you think should be the components inside a risk management plan? All right, can we do that very fast? Okay, someone's hand is up. Please kindly unmute, sir. Let's hear from you.
Once again, my opinion on that is risk management plan should contain maybe hazards or what is risk identified and control measure or management, how to manage them.
Okay.
So because it's a plan, so that when it comes up, we know what to do.
Okay, sir.
So that's
okay. So risks identified, and then control measures for risks or how risks should be managed. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any other contribution? Please, can we make it very fast? What should a risk management plan contain? What should a risk management plan contain? What should a risk management plan contain? In your own organization, what does your risk management plan contain? Can we make it very fast? Okay, please go ahead, sir. Honorable Dolapo, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I think it should contain a risk assessment, overall risk assessment.
Okay.
Per job.
Okay.
That is, before the job is being carried out, there should be a risk analysis, assessment for that job.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So risk assessment.
Yes, analysis.
Okay. Do we have any other contribution? Just one more contribution, then we'll move ahead. Please, let's try as much as we can to all be involved in the contributions, because this will help us to know the level of assessment or assimilation rather. We can assess the level of assimilation. Also, responsible persons. Okay, so persons to hand the personnel responsible for risk management. Thank you. So one more person. What should be contained in a risk management plan? What should be contained in a risk management plan? What should be contained in a risk management plan? One more person so that we can move ahead. What should be contained in a risk management plan? So Deakin said the risks identified, the control measures, the people involved. Honorable Dulakwa said the assessment checklist for the risks. Okay, so can we have one more contribution very, very fast? One more contribution. What should be contained in a risk? If you were given the responsibility to develop a risk management plan, what and what will you include in it? And if you will not answer me, I will just prophesy now that as you're leaving this class today, as you're going to work on Monday, your company will just give you an assignment and say, go and develop a risk management plan. Then you will come back and ask us and we will not respond to you. All right, so someone says mitigation plan. Thank you for answering. For all of these people that did not answer, you shall go to work on Monday and they will give you an assignment to go and develop a risk management plan in your organization. In fact, I pray now that as you are conducting your Monday meeting, your CEO will just look at your side and say, you go and conduct risk management plan for us. All right, thank you so much for all of the contributions. I was just joking, please don't mind me. Okay, so let's quickly look at what risk management plan is all about, because this is a major document. It's not something we just wave away, all right? Let's look at what a risk management plan is all about, what it involves and what it entails. How do we go about preparing a risk management plan? All right. Now, the risk management plan is a component of the project management plan that describes how risk management activities will be structured and performed. So it's all about structuring the risk management process and how the risk management process will be performed, right? Now, the risk management plan may include some or all of the following. Now, listen, what should your risk management plan contain? Number one, your risk strategy. Your risk strategy. What does your risk strategy entail? It describes the general approach to managing risk on this project. It involves the general approach to managing risk on your organization. So it's like a general overview of how you're going to manage risks. So if you're going to use job hazard analysis strategy, you mentioned that, okay, the risk management approach in this organization will be a job hazard analysis strategy. If it's going to be a peer-to-peer review approach, if it's going to be a supervisory approach, whichever approach you want to use, if it is going to be what do you call it, just-in-time risk assessment approach, if it's going to be a lean approach, whichever approach you're going to use, whichever strategy you're going to use, you give us an overview of what that strategy is all about. Then the second thing is the methodology. Why the strategy is giving you the overview of the approach you're using, the methodology now breaks it down, gives you the step-by-step specific approaches on how to carry out the risk management. All right, so the methodology defines the specific approaches, tools, and data sources that will be used to perform risk management on the project. So like I said earlier, for instance, risk strategy could mean that, okay, you're using job hazard analysis or hazard and effect management process or critical list assessment for critical tasks and critical projects, or whichever approach you want to use. But when you now go to methodology, it will now tell you step one, This is what it will be. Step 2, step 3, step 4. Now, what will be the sources of information for justifying or analyzing the impact, the frequency, the severity of the risk? That will be defined in the methodology. All right. Then these tools, the resources needed, the people, and all of that will be defined. Then roles and responsibilities, the people that will lead the risk management process, the personnel involved, their roles, their duties should be well defined. Then the funding, the money required, the resources required, how are they going to be funded? How are they going to be gotten? All right. So it identifies the funds needed to perform activities related to the project risk management. It establishes protocols for the application of contingency and management reserves. Now, another important thing that will be contained in your risk management plan is the timing. What is the frequency of conducting the risk assessment? So define when and how often the project risk assessment process will be performed throughout the project lifecycle, and establishes risk management activities for inclusion into the project schedule. So in your organization, if you want to establish a weekly risk assessment, or monthly risk assessment, or quarterly risk assessment, or daily risk assessment, dependent on the kind of project you're doing or the kind of operations you run within your organization, we normally recommend that risk assessment should be done daily, and not just done daily. At least it should be done minimum twice daily. Minimum twice daily. That's, it should be done when you're coming to work, and should be done when you're leaving the work. So you assess your work environment, you assess your work operations before commencement, you assess your work environment, work assessment, and all of the activities that happened within the day after the operations, and then you have a proper documentation before and after, so that you find that if there is a deviation. Now, if there is any contingency coming up, that will give us a hint on what we'll be doing tomorrow. But if your organization, the risk levels are not too high, you should at least do weekly risk assessment. And also, if the project involved, the risks are not too high, you should do weekly risk assessment. But by default, it's advisable you do daily risk assessment, daily risk assessment, daily risk assessment. Okay. All right. Then we'll have the risk categories. All right. I said earlier that the project risk management plan should define the categories of risks involved. We have the high priority risks, we have the medium priority risk, and we have the low priority risk. The risk categories should be well defined. So there should be groupings for the risks. Risks can be grouped based on their severity. Risks can be grouped based on their sources. Risks can be grouped based on their impacts. So if you want to categorize risk categories, you choose the classification approach you want to use. And you want to categorize the risk based on sources. You can say, okay, management risk, operations risk, finance risk, technological risk, legal risk, political risk, and all of those risks, human resource risk, people risk, and as such, those will be categories of risks based on sources. You can also decide to categorize risk based on impact, like high impact risk, medium impact risk, or low impact risks. Then you can also categorize risk based on severity, where you now have the high priority risks that have high severity, you have low medium priority risks that have medium priority, and then you have the low priority risks that have low priorities. All right, so you have to define your risk categories. Provide a means for grouping individual project risks. Now, a little more information before we proceed to other components. A common way to structure risk categories is with a risk breakdown structure, which is a hierarchical representation of potential sources of risk. And RBS helps the project team consider the full range of sources from which individual project risk may arise. This can be useful when identifying risk or when categorizing identified risk. The organization may have generic risk breakdown structures to be used for all projects, or there may be several risk breakdown structure framework for different types of projects, or the project may develop a tailored risk breakdown structure. Like I said earlier, the risk category can be from sources. You can categorize your risk based on sources. You can categorize them based on impact. So when you are using an RBS, you can have a generic RBS, you can have tailor-made RBS based on the uniqueness of different projects or different processes, operations that go on within project or organizations, right? Note, where an RBS is not used, an organization may use a custom risk categorization framework, which may take the form of a simple list of categories or a structure based on project objectives. So we can use templates, already established templates of RBS. That's if you don't have tailor-made or custom-made, if you don't have tailor-made risk breakdown structure for a particular project, you can have the custom-made or template-made project risk categories, all right? So we have an example here where you have risk breakdown structure level, you have the RBS level 1, level 0, level 1, and level 2, where the level 0 talks about all sources of project risks. Level 1 now breaks down all the sources, and then level 2 goes ahead to tell you all of the operations that contain the risks. So for instance, you have technical risk. In the technical risk, level 2 of the risk is now telling you that the activities that are possibly going to involve technical risk involve things like scope definition, requirements definition, estimate, assumptions and constraints, technical processes, technology, and technical interfaces, and so on. Then the management risk is telling you project management, program or portfolio management, operations management, organization, resourcing, communication, and so on. Commercial risks involving things like contractual terms and conditions, internal procurement, suppliers and vendors, subcontracts, clients and customer stability, partnerships and joint ventures. They have the external risks like legislation, exchange rates, site and facilities, environmental or weather, competition, regulatory, and so on. So you could have a structured RBS, or you could have a template RBS. Now, when we look at what we have here, which is just a custom RBS, it might not be for everyone or for every project. There are some projects you may want to get down to the root cause of the problem. So if you want to really drive down to the root cause of the problem, using this RBS might not be for you. You may have to develop generic RBS that will help you get to the root cause of the issues. All right. Okay. Now, another component, another part of your risk management plan is what we call the stakeholder risk appetite. Stakeholder risk appetite. The risk appetite of key stakeholders on the project are recorded in the risk management plan as they inform the details of the plan risk management processes. In particular, stakeholder risk appetite should be expressed as measurable risk threshold around each project objective. This threshold will determine the acceptable level of overall project risk exposure, and they are also used to inform the definitions of probability and the impacts to be used when assessing and prioritizing individual project risks. So every project stakeholder has the threshold for risks. We need to take into consideration, how do we measure? How do we come up with stakeholder risk appetite? Okay, we need to define that so that it will guide whoever that is carrying out the risk management operation. Then also, another part is to define the risk probability and impact, definitions of the risk probability and impact. The high priority risk, low priority risk, medium priority risk, high severe risk, middle severe risk, and all of that. Okay, acceptable risk, non-acceptable risk, and tolerable risk, all of them need to be defined. Definitions of risk probability and impact levels are specific to the project context and reflect the risk appetite and the thresholds of the organization and key stakeholders. The project may generate specific definitions of probability and impact levels, or it may start with general definitions provided by the organization. The number of levels reflect the degree of detail required for project risk management processes, with more levels used for a more detailed risk approach, typically 5 levels, and a fewer for simple processes, usually 3. So you could have risk levels of up to 5, like 0 to 5, or 0 to 3. 1 to 5 or 1 to 3. Okay. Or you could use the Hedonian scale of 1 to 10, depending on what you want to do. But each of those levels have their own definitions of risk. So you could say 1, for instance, let's assume we are using a risk level of 3, 1, 2, 3. We could say at risk probability of 1, it could mean low level risk. At risk probability of 2, it could mean middle level risk. At risk probability of 3, it could mean high level risks. But before you could define those things, 1, 2, 3, you would have done both your qualitative and quantitative analysis on risks associated with the work environment or the project in question. If you're using 5 levels, you could have, okay, slight risks, moderately slight risk, low risk, medium risk, and then extremely high risks. Okay, dependent on how you want to define your risk. So you could see an example of what we mean here. So example of definitions for probability and impact. So you see a scale, you have a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So inevitably we could say 5 because the other one is nil. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from very low to medium to high, and to very high. Now probability, from definition of the probability, very high said any risk that has the percentage of occurrence or probability of occurrence greater than 70%, then that risk is a very high risk. Remember, you are the one that will define the combination of factors that will define the probability. 1%, 2%, and as the case may be. All right. So if you have a very high risk, according to this definition, it said greater than 70%. And if it is occurring, now look at the terms and conditions they are raising. If it is occurring greater than 6 times, obviously it means that it should be greater than 70%. And in that case, it should be very high risk. So we already have a requirement. So number one of the requirements could be that if it occurs frequently, greater than 6 times, maybe within a period of 1 year, then that means that probability is 70%. Or greater than 70%, all right? And it's a very high risk. Now, another thing is that if it costs more than $5 million, now $5 million is giving you a quantitative risk. The time is giving you a qualitative risk. The cost is giving you a quantitative risk analysis. It's providing you with both time metrics and cost metrics. Okay, so now quantitatively, he said if the risk cost is more than $5 million, then and it is occurring more than 6 times, or 6 is occurring more than it's occurring frequently 6 months, or occurred more than 6 months, then it means that it is more than 70%, and obviously it's going to be a high risk. Now, what is the quality? Very significant impact on overall functionality. This is what the impact of this risk will come up at the end of the day. Then you have the high risk, 51 to 70%, but not more than 70%. Occurs 3 to 6 months, but not more than 6 months. Could be within the range of $1 million to $5 million, but not greater than 5 million. Then the quality here is a significant impact on overall functionality. They have the medium risk, 31 to 50%, but not more than 51%. 1 to 3 months, but not more than 3 months. $501,000 to $1 million, but not more than $1 million. That will be some impact in key functional areas. Then for the low risk, 11 to 30%, but not more than 30%, occurring 1 to 4 weeks, and could be within the risk of 100K to 500K, minor impact on the overall functionality. Then you have the very low risk, between 1 to 10%, but not more than 10%, occurring 1 week and less than 100K, and then the impact will be minor impact on secondary functions. Then you have the nil scale, on which the probability is that it will be less than 1. And then the time, no change, cost, no change, quality, no change in functionality. So obviously, we will not consider this as a major risk. Okay, we might not even consider it as a risk. All right. Okay. Does anyone have any question on this table, this example here? because we need to understand this table. Before you will come up with this table, you would have done your qualitative risk analysis and quantitative risk analysis within your organization using any risk management strategy of your choice. Okay, before you could come up with this approach. Now, these things are things we do on daily basis. You could use the decision making approach too. You could use the pool approach, survey approach to make these decisions on this risk. Since we are testing stakeholder threshold, risk appetite, you could also use stakeholders' opinion to find the threshold. Now, a typical example of we doing this on daily activities. Someone in this class last week said something. He said he made a comparison that, okay, this class online is about 100,000, which is not up to that. That was his own comparison. But if it's going to be offline, it's going to be 250. All right. So he used that quantitative approach to take a decision as, okay, let me better do it online. And then looking at the time involved and how it's conducted online, if it were to be an in-class, is every day for 10 days. Okay. If it's going to be offline, it's going to be weekend for 12 days. So that's another quantity too that you can use to say, okay, based on this, based on that, I will take this decision. All right. Okay. So these are some of the things we do daily. When you go to the market, someone says my audio is not clear. Please let me find out. Please, if my audio is clear enough, kindly type 11. If it is not clear, kindly type 00. Let me be sure. If you can hear me loud and clear, please kindly type 11 in the chat room. Okay, so some people are hearing me very clearly, some are not. So if you're not hearing me clearly, it simply means it could be from your network. So kindly check your network and then be sure to join the class back. Because if you're not hearing me clearly and others are hearing me clearly, obviously it's not from my network. It could be from your own network. All right. Now, could there be any question on this? We always encourage people who do project management. We encourage them to take a course on health, safety, and environment, because in health, safety, and environment, we take quality risk management as a full-blown course there. And then they teach you how to develop risk management charts, like what we have here. They teach you how to develop different risk charts, risk acceptance charts, risk tolerance charts, risk probability charts, risk matrices, and all of that. So if a project manager and you really want to function as a project manager, even if you don't have intention of taking HSC as a course, you can go and take a workshop on risk management so that you could know how all of these charts come up. But that on the sideways. Do I have any question on this chart? Do I have any question on this chart? Any question on this chart? Any contribution on this chart before we proceed? Okay. If there is no question, I will proceed immediately. But let it be known to us that this particular chart we're all seeing here, we use it every day. We use this chart every day. Okay, we use this chart every day. Okay, so someone asked the question of how to calculate the probability percentage. Okay, thank you so much. Now, to calculate the probability percentage, you could use assumptions. You could use assumptions. And please, these assumptions will be based on the data available to you within your organization. So take, for instance, this assumption that very high risks occur greater than 6 times or greater than 6 months, they occur frequently, greater or they occur within, after 6 months. Okay, sure. They occur after 6 months or so. Now you could say, okay, for 12 months is 100%. If this risk come up after 12 months or comes up once after 12 months or comes up, you give your own index, you can say that will be 100%. If it occurs less than 12 months or between 10 to 11 months, then it should be 90%. Then between 70 to 80%, it should be less than 6 months or 7 months, as the case may be. So you use your own assumptions based on the information available to you within your organization to come up with the percentage of probability. Okay, the percentage of probability. All right. And there are other indices you can also use. All right. Okay. Now, probability, another component of the risk management plan is what we call the probability and impact matrix. Prioritization rules may be specific by the organization in advance of the project and be included in organizational process assets, or they may be tailored to the specific project. Opportunities and threats are represented in a common probability and impact matrix using positive definitions of impact for opportunities and negative impact definitions for threats. Descriptive terms such as very high, high, medium, low, and very low, or numeric values can be used for probability and impact. Where numeric values are used, there can be, or these can be multiplied to give a probability impact score for each risk, which allows the relative priority of individual risk to be evaluated within each priority level. Now, look at another example of what we have here that we call the probability impact matrix, where we have two dimensions. You have the threats and you have the opportunities, the threats and the opportunities. Okay. Okay, so all of the videos will be uploaded shortly. Don't worry. Now, why the threats are dealing with the negative impact, the opportunities are dealing with the positive impact. All right, so now you have a scale of very low from 0.05 to 0.08, and that's on the impact, that's positive. And then you have on the probability, you have 0.1 to 0.9. Now, if you are running an intersection of risk, in risk impact, we said it is impact multiplied by probability, likelihood multiplied by impact, or likelihood multiplied by severity. That's how you get the numbers you have there. And you know, probability is at 1. Probability is 1 or less than 1. The absolute probability is 1. Any other thing that is not absolute is below 1. All right. So at absolute of 1 means 100% that the risk will occur, right? Okay, so if we have our scale of 0.05 to 0.08 for impact and 0.01 or 0.1 to 0.90 on probability, then you can use that to measure. All right. So you could have these white regions to be the acceptable risks. Then you have the slight gray areas to be the tolerable risks. And then you have these dark areas to be the reject regions. Or you could have the white areas to be the low risks, the gray areas to be the medium risks, and then this dark gray areas will now become the high risk, dependent on what you are carrying out. So if we want to do a simple calculation, so let's assume that from your chart, your impact chart, remember I said there are different charts. So from your impact chart, on the positive side of the impact chart, you have ready to be 0.05. And then on the probability, you've ready to be 0.01. By the time you multiply 0.05 by 0.01, it should be giving you something in this range. So Dix and Dix will give you Dix, Dix and Dix, that and that. And then you could have different impact levels, different opportunity levels expressed by impact and probability. The same thing happening on the opportunity side is happening on the threat side. Okay, whatever thing that is happening here is happening to the threats. Opportunities and threats all opposite, and they can be equal. That's what this probability chart is trying to explain. But before you come to using probability charts, please, I would recommend that you use simple decision-making tools like this one. This is much more quantitative to use. This is much more qualitative to use. So if you don't understand the figures here, you might miss out. But this particular one is much more quantitative to use. Easy to define, easy to recognize, and easy to apply. Okay, so before you go to taking risk probability impact matrix as your guide, please make sure you have taken a very good course on risk management and you understand risk probability matrix very well before using them. Hope I'm very clear enough. Now, another component of the risk management plan is called the reporting formats. Reporting format define how the outcomes of the project risk management process will be documented, analyzed, and communicated. This section of the risk management plan describes the content and format of the risk register and the risk report, as well as any other required outcome from the project risk management process. Now, when you're reporting risks, it has different formats. Okay, like in HSC, we have a reporting kind of risk approach where you put into consideration the elements or the components that are affected by the risk. In safety, we have 4 major safety aspects or 4 major components or safety, how will I put it now? Players. 4 major players in the world of safety that can be affected. You have the people, you have the environment, you have the assets, and you have the reputation. Yes, we say safety affects organizations, but actually what safety affects within organization is that safety is affecting their people. We have safety on people, we have safety on the work environment or the safety on assets, equipment, then we have safety on reputation. So these are the 4 major players in the risk environment also. So when you're reporting risk, you can have different reporting formats for risk associated with people, different reporting formats with risk associated with environment, associated with the assets, and associated with the reputation, organizational reputation. All right. Okay. Then we have the tracking as also another important aspect of risk management plan. Tracking documents how risk activities will be recorded and how risk management processes will be audited. All right. Now, before we proceed, let's take a pause. If there is any question, please let me have those questions now. If there is any area you did not understand very well, please ask me a question now, because I am taking the time to explain risk management plan, because that is the major document that will guide every other thing we are doing in the risk project risk management. All right. Okay. Do I have any question on the content of the risk management plan? We say we need a risk register, risk methodology, roles and responsibilities, funding, timing, project category or risk categories, and then we need a stakeholder risk appetite, definition of risk probability and impact, probability and impact matrix, and the reporting formats, and then tracking. All right. Do I have any question or any issue of concern before we proceed? Or any contribution? Any? Okay. I didn't record this area, so let me quickly record this area. For the identifying risks, I said is about whatever the risk plan is saying, that's what we use in identifying risks, right? So it's the process of identifying individual project risk as well as the sources of overall project risk and documenting their characteristics. The key benefit of this process is the documentation of existing individual project risks and the sources of overall project risk. It also brings together information so the project team can respond appropriately to identify risk. This process is performed throughout the project. Now, on the input, we have the project management plan, and on it, we have the requirements management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, resource management plan, risk management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. And I said all of these things on themselves are sources of risks. In that case, they should be considered when identifying risks. Then we have the project documents where we'll now look at the assumptions log, cost estimate, duration estimate, okay, so we have the assumptions log, cost estimate, duration estimate, issue log, lessons learned, register requirements, documentation, resource requirements, there was stakeholder register. All of these documents also could, not that they could, they are also sources of risks on themselves. All right, then you have the agreement. Of course, Mr. Shaibu said today that the project charter, of which is derived from agreement, that if the project charter is not well defined, the project could go a long way in not defining and not obtaining the objective or achieving the objectives, right? And in that same way, agreement, project charters can also form major inputs in identifying risks. They have the procurement documentation, enterprise environmental factors, and OPA. Then on the tools and techniques, we have the expert judgment, data gathering, which we can do through brainstorming, checklists, or interview. In fact, I will recommend that we, on our daily or routinary risk assessment, we have checklists. Okay, checklist is very, very important so that you know what is working and what is not working. Or you know whether the risk solutions or risk mitigation measures you put in place, whether they are still working or not working. With the checklist, you can find out the effectiveness of your risk strategies. All right. Then you have the data analysis, which we can do through root cause analysis, in which case we are trying to find the primary source of the risk and then dealing with it. Because most often we are dealing with secondary risks rather than primary risks. Okay. Then we have the SWOT analysis, assumptions and constraint analysis. And I also said here that assumptions on themselves have their own embedment of risk. Constraints have their own embedment of risk. So for each assumption and for each constraint associated with the project, we need to analyze them very well, understanding very critically the impact of the risks liable within those assumptions and constraints. Then we have the document analysis. Each of the documents must be well analyzed. Project plan must be analyzed. Project documents must be analyzed. Project charters must be analyzed. Project procurement documents, project risk document, all of these project stakeholder register, all of them must be analyzed so as to understand the level of risks coming from those areas. All right. Then we have the interpersonal and team skills where we can use facilitation as a way to identify risks. You know, we have the prompt list, and I said something on the prompt list. It's important that we engage in daily or often frequent risk assessment so that we can know which of the risks are prompting up frequently. Now, there is something with risks. You may not be able to observe a risk in the morning, but in the afternoon, a risk might come up. So risks are like in physics those days, or chemistry. That's what they taught us about Brownian motion. I don't know if any of us can remember Brownian motion. The Brownian motion is, it tells about the movement of gas, okay, or gas molecules. So it can be on axis A, and you're looking for it on axis B. By the time you go to axis B, it was moved to axis A. So it keeps moving in random movements, zigzag, unorganized movement. Most often that's how risks appear. So to ensure that you are well equipped for identifying risks as they occur is good that we put in motion frequent assessment, risk assessment, so that we can have prompt lists and then be able to deal with them. And then we have the meetings also as way to facilitate risk identification. Then on the output, we have the risk register, risk report, project documents update, we'll have updates on the assumptions log, issue log, and the lessons learned register. Then the next one is the perform qualitative risk analysis. Qualitative. There are two things we'll be doing on the analysis part of risk. There are two things we'll be doing. We'll be doing the qualitative side and the quantitative. One qualifies, the other quantifies. So qualify, giving us indices and matrices. Quantify, giving us volumes. All right. Okay. So perform qualitative risk analysis is the process of prioritizing individual project risks for further analysis or action by assessing their probability of occurrence and impact, as well as other characteristics. The key benefit of this process is that it focuses effort on high priority risk. This process is performed throughout the project. Now, on the input, we have the project management plan, where we'll specifically look at the risk management plan. Then we'll have the project document, where we'll look at the assumptions log, risk register, and stakeholder register. Then we'll have the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. On the tools and technique, we'll have the expert judgment, we'll have the data gathering, where we use interviews essentially. And then we'll have data analysis, where we'll have the risk data quality assessment. Remember, in qualifying risks, you have the probability of that risk occurring, and you have the impact of the risk if it occurs. We need those two parameters to be able to qualify risk. And that's why we say risk is equal to likelihood multiplied by severity, or multiplied by impact. Likelihood multiplied by impact, or frequency multiplied by impact, or frequency multiplied by severity. You can write that down. All right, that's what this place was trying to tell us, that qualitative risk analysis is the process of prioritizing individual project risks for further analysis or actions by accessing their probability of occurrence and then impact. Okay, so majorly the two characteristics we're looking at there is the probability of it occurring, and the impact if it occurs. Impact can also be looked at as consequences or looked at as severity, while probability can be looked as frequency of occurrence. So when you're now measuring risk qualitatively, you have risk equal to likelihood multiplied by severity or multiplied by impact. Did you get that mathematical expression? If you got that mathematical expression, please type 1 in the chat room, and you can also help us put it in the chat room. All right, now data you're gathering on probability and impact, the assessment of the quality of the data must be put into consideration. The quality of the assessment of the data, be it the probability data or the impact data, must be well analyzed. Okay, right. I said if you got the mathematical expression of qualitative risk analysis, you put it in the chat room. Nobody has done that. I said risk is equal to, so R is equal to likelihood L multiplied by I or S, where I is impact and or S is severity. So R is equal to L multiplied by S or multiplied by I. Risk is equal to likelihood multiplied by impact or severity. Please, if you got that, please let me put it in the chat room. Then we'll have data analysis also, risk probability and impact assessment, which we've looked at previously. Then we'll have assessment of other risk parameters. Then you have the interpersonal and team skills, where facilitation is also important. Then we'll have the risk categorization, data representation, which can be done by probability and impact matrix and hierarchical charts, and then we'll have the meetings. Okay. Then on the output, we have the project documents update, where we would update the assumptions log, the issue log, the risk register, and the risk report. Okay. All right. Do I have any question here? We are gradually rounding up. The next one is perform quantitative risk analysis, which is the process of numerically analyzing the combined effect of identified individual project risk and other sources of uncertainty on overall project objective. The key benefit of this process is that it quantifies overall project risk exposure, and it can also provide additional quantitative risk information to support risk response planning. This process is not required for every project, but where it is used, it is performed throughout the project. Now, on the input, we have the project management plan, where we have the risk management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. On the input, we also have the project documents, where we'll be needing the assumptions log, basis of estimate, cost forecast, duration estimate, milestone list, resource requirement, risk register, risk report, and schedule forecasts. Then we have the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. On the tools and technique, we'll be needing the expert judgment, we'll be needing data gathering, using interviews, we need interpersonal and team skills via facilitation. Then we'll need representations of uncertainties, where we could use scatter diagrams or any other statistical tool to represent uncertainties. Then we'll have the data analysis using simulation, sensitivity analysis, decision tree analysis, and influence diagrams. I will repeat this again. For the sake of competence, I will encourage everyone here to make our time to attend a workshop on risk management, not just project risk management, but general risk management. If the class is going to be physical from us, we'll let you know. If it's going to be virtual, we'll also let you know. But by all means, please put it as part of your requirement, training requirement this year, that you attend at least one risk management workshop, whether it is basic, intermediate, or advanced. Just start taking courses on risk management, because project management has a lot to do with risk management. And as a project manager, you cannot say you don't know how to carry out risk management practices or risk management operations. All right, so please, there are some terms that we are saying here that we are just mentioning them. We are not going deep into explaining and then defining how they are being used. Because in the context of project management, we are unifying knowledge. We are unifying knowledge. But to make sure that we grow more competencies in this knowledge we are unifying, for the areas that we need to go for deeper learning, we will recommend that you go for deeper learning in them. And I'm recommending now, please, by all means, take a course on risk management. Okay, risk management, very, very important. Then on the output, we have the project documents update. Plan risk responses, that's the next process. Plan risk responses is the process of developing options, selecting strategies, and agreeing on actions to address overall project risk exposure, as well as to treat individual project risks. The key benefit of this process is that it identifies appropriate ways to address overall project risk and individual project risk. This process also allocates resources and insert activities into project document and the project management plan as well. This process is performed throughout the project. In the input, we have the project management plan, where we have the resource management plan, the risk management plan, and the cost baseline. Then we also have the project documents, where we have the lessons learned register, the project schedule, project team assignment, resource calendars, risk register, risk report, stakeholder register, and then we have the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. On the tools and technique, we have the expert judgment, we have the data gathering using interviews, interpersonal and team skills using facilitation. Then we have the strategies for threats, and then we have strategies for opportunities. Then we have contingent response strategies, strategies for overall project risk. Then we have the data analysis, where we have the cost, where we have the alternative analysis and cost benefit analysis. Then we have the decision making, where we look at the multi-criteria decision making technique, or the multi-criteria decision analysis. On the output, we have the change request, project management plan updates, where we'll be updating the schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, resource management plan, procurement management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, and the cost baseline. Then we'll also be expecting to have project documents update on assumptions log, cost forecast, lessons learned register, project schedule, project team assignment, risk register, and risk report. For the sake of time and for the sake of the other class, please, we are going to be moving this class now to another platform. So please, let's look at the WhatsApp group for the next link for this class. But we need to finish this particular class before we go on break. All right. So we need like 20, 30 minutes to 40 minutes to complete this before we go on break. So I'm going to stop now so that they can start the other class. We are blocking them. So please, everyone here, let's check the WhatsApp room for the where we are going to continue our class. I'm also going to post it in the Google Classroom so you could get all of the information there. All right. So all of the questions, we'll take them as we return. I hope we're all together. Okay, please, if everyone heard what I just said now, can you please type 1 in the chat room? You heard all of what I just said now. Can you type 1 in the chat room? If you heard what I just said now, type 1 in the chat room. If you didn't hear it, please let me know. I said we are going to continue this class in the next, we're using another platform, another link, so that those of them that are running HR can start their class. Okay, all right, thank you. So I'm going to stop the class right now and open another. So, but we're going to take like 10 minutes break. No, 5 minutes, please. 5 minutes. So by 9:55, we are returning back. 9:55, we should be done with all the technical setup, right? All right, thank you.